In this video, I want to show you how to run a hypothesis test using StatCrunch. So first of all, let's take a look at our example. According to the reputable magazine, 34% of people in a certain large country have sleepwalked at least once in their lives. Suppose a random sample of 300 people shows that 72 reported sleepwalking. Carry out the first two steps of a hypothesis test. Well, in fact, we're going to do the whole hypothesis test here. That will test whether the proportion of people who have sleepwalked is 34%. So from this sentence, we can now write our null hypothesis. So our null hypothesis is with no change, stay the same. So right here, the proportion of people who have sleepwalked stay the same. That's going to be 34%. So null hypothesis will be P equals 34%, or you can put 0.34. That's just the preference. And one thing I want you to pay closer attention is in a non-alternating hypothesis, it should always be a statement of population proportion, because we don't know the true proportion, which is population proportion. So that's why we want to run a hypothesis test to see which one is true. So that's the reason when you write the null hypothesis or alternative hypothesis, it should always in terms of P. Alright? So back to our example right here, we want to now write the alternative hypothesis. So alternative hypothesis is always with the statement you wish or you want to test. So right here, we want to test whether the proportion of people who have sleepwalked is 0.34. So whether, that means whether or not. Then that means in our alternative hypothesis, it should be P is not equal to, so let's insert the is not equal to symbol and 0.34 because it's whether or not, so 0.34. Then we are done writing our pair of hypotheses over here. And next thing you want to find out is number of successes and the number of observations. So right here, we go back to look at our sample. So we have a simple random sample of 300 people. So that means our number of observations here will be 300. And let's make it red. So you see, here we go. And then next thing we're going to find out is the number of successes. So of that 300 people, 72 of them reported sleepwalking. So right now the number of successes would just be the number of people who reported sleepwalking. That's going to be 72. And that's all you need to know to use the StatCrunch and run the hypothesis test. So now let's go ahead to the StatCrunch. So go to StatCrunch website, and then we're going to just open the StatCrunch. And once we have it, we click on Stat, Proportion Stats. We're doing with one sample, and we only have the summaries. So first thing we want to type in is number of successes, so it's going to be 72. Remember, the number of people who reported sleepwalking. And number of observations, that's the sample size, which is 300 here. And we're looking at a hypothesis test for proportion. In the null hypothesis, we have P equals 0.34. In the alternative, we have P is not equal to 0.34. So let's not change anything right here. And you can store the data, or you can store the output if you want. If you don't want to, just click on compute. Then right here, you have the result. So we have the sample proportion, we have standard error, that's going to be square root of P multiplied by 1 minus P divided by N. You can check it on your own. And then that's a statistic, and that's a p-value. With a p-value that's less than the significance level, which in this case is 0.05, we then will be able to reject the null hypothesis. So that's the end of this question. And right now, let's go ahead and look at another example where you don't have the number of successes directly. So let's go back to our Word document. So right here, I have an example that says it was determined that the percentage of T's in the English language in the 1800s was 8%. A written sample of 1,000 letters from a current newspaper contained 9% T's, and test the hypothesis that the proportion of T's has increased in modern times using the 0.05 level of significance. So right here, we want to write down the null hypothesis and the alternative hypothesis first. So null hypothesis will be with no change. So with no change, that means the percentage of T's will be stay the same as in 1800s, which is P equals 8%. Alternative hypothesis will be the one you want to test. So we want to test the proportion of T has increased. So proportion of T has increased, that means the proportion P right now is greater than 8%. We want to see if this one is true. And next two things is number of successes and number of observations. So number of observations, that's clear right here because it's a random sample of 1,000 letters. Then that 1,000 will be the sample size, which is number of observations. And next thing is the number of successes. But right now we only know in that 1,000 letters we have 9% of T's. So 9% of T's, that equals how many T's? So we have 1,000 T's and 9% of them were T's. So multiply 9%. Then that's going to give you the number of T's right here. So once you multiply this two, you should get 90. Then when you're done with all the steps right here, when you find out all the numbers and then write down the hypothesis, then you can go ahead to StatCrunch and then use the StatCrunch to run the hypothesis for you. So let's go back to StatCrunch again and run this hypothesis. So go to Stat, Proportion Stats, one sample, and same, we only have the summary. The number of successes right here is 90. Observations, that's 1,000. And we're going to do hypothesis test for proportion. With the null hypothesis, it's P equals 0.08. And alternative hypothesis will be P greater than, because we want to see if it has increased. So it's greater than 0.08. And I still don't want to store the data or store the output, so let's just hit compute. Then here we go. We have our result. So same thing, the count, that's number of successes. Total, that's number of observations. Sample proportion. So here is where you can check if you miscalculate the number of successes. This number should be the same as the proportion you see in the questions, which is 9%. That means, okay, you didn't make any mistake counting the number of successes over there. And standard error, that's the same, with the same formula you can get the standard error with this value. Z statistic, and then P value. So with this P value, remember our significance level right here is still 0.05. So this P value is greater than 0.05. That means our decision will be fail to reject the null hypothesis. Alright, I think that's all for how to use StatCrunch to run a hypothesis test. I hope you find it useful.